And so what we do is try to identify what the roles and responsibilities of the business should be. And as we talk about that president, that CEO, that owner, right, it starts to become clear. It's like you're really only responsible for a small set of things. And your job is really to lead, inspire, develop, set strategy, set vision, and let your team take over and run with the administrative, the lower level tasks. You should focus on the higher level tasks.
You're asking yourself, why am I doing this?
Smart people would know how to use all these different tools. They
start with something small.
You'll never get your entire organization if you don't pull off operations. Don't give up.
It can be as small as that.
I think you guys are going to have our last today.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Delegate That podcast, where we discuss the art and science of delegation, business management, and leadership. I am your host, Adam Labar, and today I am stoked to have a good conversation with a friend of mine, Corey Robinson. Corey, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your businesses.
Yeah, hey, so Corey Robinson, really excited to be on the pod today. Several businesses, right? So I've been acquiring businesses for the last 5 years or so. My main business is my Batteries Plus business, right? So I am one of the nation's largest Batteries Plus franchisees. And that's where I kind of cut my teeth with getting into business. So we purchased a set of 4 stores and grew that to what is now 12. And I act kind of as the CEO of that business and got an operator in place that kind of manages the day-to-day. And then I am a partner on a medium-sized landscaping, lawn care, and property maintenance business. And then I have several other ventures going where I'm pretty much a silent partner or advisor to. But today I would say my day job is focused really around supporting and helping small businesses kind of achieve the things that people in my network and people like me have achieved utilizing tools like EOS and systems and optimizing processes. And that's Scale. Scale is a fractional chief operating officer business. And, I'm kind of the principal consultant in that business. And so I'm running that and leading that right now. And it's one of those things that I'm super passionate about because I get to kind of go in and solve problems and fix things for presidents and owners and CEOs that they just don't have the time to focus in on or the time to fix or even really the understanding on how to fix these things. So it's one of my ways of giving back. And it's been really fun to go in and, go through all these different challenges and see all these different things that I never thought I would see.
Do you feel overwhelmed with mundane tasks that eat up your valuable time? It's time to reclaim your schedule and focus on what truly matters. Get your time back with elite remote talent without the time zone hassle. Delegate $10 an hour tasks to focus on more $1,000 an hour tasks. Schedule your free strategy call at wisevas.io.
That is awesome. Yeah, I love. That's one of those things that I thrive in, is being able to solve problems and help people figure those things out that they can't figure out. Day-to-day operations, not so much my thing. Helping solve problems, big issues. That's where I kind of thrive. So I'm looking forward to asking you some questions about that. Before we dig into that too much, though, I want to go into you scaled from 4 to 12 stores at Batteries Plus, right? And you're also buying other businesses. How did you kind of get involved into the Batteries Plus franchise? How did that kind of strike your eyesight? Yeah,
so it started with, I was a real estate investor, corporate guy for many years, and like many real estate investors, as COVID hit and things got crazy, it got really hard to make money, and so everybody was looking to pivot in different directions, and I just happened to come across purchasing small businesses. And fortunately, my friends and mentors and people in our network and GoBundance kind of helped me flush that out and see what was next. And, I got the idea from a friend to look into buying businesses. And then another friend just really kind of honed that in and talked a lot about franchising and the franchising model and the support from franchise and how I kind of stepping into a business that it needs leadership, it needs direction, it needs a lot of things, but it doesn't need everything. You're not starting from zero when you start with a franchise. And I really like that idea, when I was thinking about how do I take my first step into business? And so with that, it was like, man, this kind of de-risks it a little bit. And I get to focus on the things that are really important. Like, how do I lead the team? What's our strategy look like? How do I develop my leaders? And not have to worry about what system do we use for this, or how do we create this policy or that procedure? And so those were that idea got honed. And then really I wanted something close to home. I wanted a business. I wanted a franchise that was close to home. And that could offset the income that I was making from my W-2, which was significant at the time. And the only way to do that with some of these smaller franchise models, if you're not buying a McDonald's or something like that, is you have to go multi-unit. And I was still working. I kind of planned on working for a while. And so I knew I needed like an operator, an operations manager, somebody that ran most of the day to day. I would be involved. I'd had hours available to dedicate to the business, but I wouldn't be able to be there full time, or didn't really want to be there full time. And so this just happened to come along, hit my desk, and it just checked all of the boxes. It was close to home, had an operator, it was making good money. And so I just decided to jump in. And then that, the idea of scaling once you were inside a franchise, I knew that going into it, because of others. I've seen others do it and listened to others doing it. It's kind of a closed circuit when you're in a franchise. And so the deals kind of come across your desk first and you get the first crack at them. And so I just started to purchase the stores that were near me or adjacent to me. I'd reach out to the owners, or the corporation would get back to me and let me know that somebody was looking to sell in an adjacent market. And we just scooped them up.
So you said that when you took over your first 4 stores, they already had an operator in place. Is that what you said?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I went in. That was one of my criteria, right? Is like there's no way that I was going to be able to just jump in and do the day to day, not with the setup that I had at the time.
So when you bought that, how did you kind of ensure that operator was going to be the kind of person that you wanted as a leader, right? Because sometimes when you come in, it's a different dynamic between the previous owner and you. Like, how did you make sure that was the right person for you, kind of running that shop?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I made sure it was a right person for me. One, I made sure that they were competent, and that they cared, right? And I figured we would flush out the values and the alignment down the line, right? As I had more time and I understood the business, I would be able to then start to move things around and make adjustments where needed. But I really, at that time, just really needed somebody that knew what they're doing, that actually gave a shit. And I found that person, that operator. I would say that we weren't necessarily like culturally or core value aligned, but he did a really good job and cared about the business. And that was enough for me to get started.
So as you expanded from 4 to 12, what did that kind of look like for you in changing? Like, were you able to keep just one main operator, or how did you kind of have to grow your team of leaders? Because obviously you have employees sitting in the store and like talking to folks and whatnot. But how did you kind of have to grow your team of leaders to make sure that you were able to still focus on what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I laid out a strategy to grow to 8 stores from 4 that were all in close proximity to my current team, right? And so going through their duties and delegating kind of tasks that were non-productive from my operations managers to the store level. I felt like there was a lot of control at that more senior level, and the stores weren't doing nearly as much as they could. So one of the first things that I did was take a lot of that off of his plate. As I started to grow, then I knew he would have the capacity to kind of manage these other people. Obviously, it doesn't always go as planned. It's one of those things. It's a trial and error, and you stretch people to see what their capacity really is. And so, we were fairly successful from going from 4 to 6 with the current model that we had. But as we went from 6 to 8, we found cracks started to show up, and delegating wasn't necessarily his strong suit. And so we found him working a lot and trying to control everything rather than, making sure that the teams were doing what they're supposed to and leading and inspiring. And so that's really where the fissures started to show.
How did you, when you saw that, how were you able to what were the kind of the identifying features for you to be able to see that happening? And then how did you kind of adjust it to make sure that the operations were flowing well across all the stores?
Yeah, so our metrics started to slide. The beautiful part, one of the things that we teach a lot of is like we talk about KPIs, we talk about scorecards. And one of the first things I did was establish a scorecard for our business. Just, a set of 6 or 8 metrics that helped me understand how the business was performing. And we've gone through many iterations of that as we have changed our focus. But initially, like coming out of corporate America, I knew that was really important. And I knew from afar that was the only way that I was going to be able to kind of keep a finger on or a pulse on what was going on in the business. It's like that would tell me, that would be like a leading indicator of there being a problem in one of the stores or in the business. And so I used that, and pretty much within 3 months, I think, of buying the first 4 stores, we had that set up and running every week. And so I was able to kind of monitor that. And as we scaled, we bought stores that I would say were not performing because they weren't measuring the way that we were measuring, weren't performing. But the first couple, we were able to get pretty close to where our averages were. But as we took on the other two, they were performing okay, but I seen the enterprise KPIs start to drop and start to fizzle out. And so I started to do meetings with my leaders direct report and to understand kind of where the gaps are and where they're lacking support. What I realized, their control, or the control that our operations manager had over them was drastic, and they weren't allowed to really make a move, and they weren't empowered to make any decisions or do anything without his feedback. And that created a real problem because he was stretched so thin that there was no way he could control 8 different stores and 8 different reports and be successful in it. And so that's where that conversation started to happen. And that's where I started looking at okay, does this role fit him? What do we need to put in place to support him? What are the next steps?
So that tends to be an issue, especially for newer owners or starters, founders, that they get to a point where they feel like they need to control all of that. How are you able to coach the newer folks that now you're taking over and leading to let go of some of that control and help them feel comfortable with letting their leaders lead? Because obviously you were kind of at a point through corporate where you were able to do that with your leaders. So how do you train and coach your individual operations leaders to make sure that they're letting their team do what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, it's a little different for everybody, right? I think it's part education and it's part just kind of talking them into taking their hands off of the wheel and showing them that, nothing drastic is going to happen in the event that they let go a little bit. And so what I try to do with my leaders now is I try to go through activity of, identifying roles and responsibilities, right? I think that's the biggest part. People don't understand in small businesses. It's what is everybody responsible for? Does that fit their competencies? And should they be doing it? Are they good at it? Do they care to be doing it? And does it align with kind of their function, right? And that's the other part. A lot of owners are here, you do this and do this. And it can be 2 tasks that are on completely opposite sides of the spectrum. And so you might have somebody that's highly analytical and you're expecting them to lead and inspire. Well, they don't have that competency or that skill set. And so what we do is try to identify what the roles and responsibilities of the business should be. And as we talk about that president, that CEO, that owner, right, it starts to become clear. It's you're really only responsible for a small set of things. And your job is really to lead, inspire, develop, set strategy, set vision, and let your team take over and run with the administrative, the lower level tasks. You should focus on the higher level tasks. And so what through that exercise, right, we identify that, point that out, and then we try to work the owner out of that situation. So one by one, we align functions or people with the functions correctly. And then we just try to pull one thing off and watch, somebody will actually do it better than what you're doing it if you just let it go. And so we try to start small, right? Because lots of owners are crazy. They need to be informed about everything and getting control of everything. And so it's give me one small thing. Now that we've identified, Joe Schmo is supposed to be doing this, let's give it to him. And let's see what happens. And let's monitor and watch it. And so it's a slow progression that evolves over time. And then it's not a linear curve. It's an exponential curve is what we see is they give up just a little and they're oh, this is off my plate. And they give up just a little bit more. And then the curve starts to go upward and they're okay, they start to learn the process of delegation. And it's really fun to see because it's the freedom that they have and how much better their business operates when they start to get out of their own way. Is amazing. I've experienced it myself. I know many others like yourself. We've all been there and done that and try to control everything. And once we start to let go, it's just such an amazing feeling to see things flow without you and you having to be engaged and part of every decision. Because it's very frustrating getting a call all the time about every little problem or an email or a Slack message, whatever it is. It drives you nuts and it makes it hard to get anything done.
Yeah. And if you have to be involved that much, you either hired wrong or you're doing the wrong tasks. It's one or the other, right? Did you hire the wrong person, or are you having your nose somewhere where it shouldn't be? And if you could figure out which one of those two it is, then you know where the answer is, right? Hire the right person, or get your nose out of where it's not supposed to be. Because if you hired right, they should be doing that task better than you, anyways. So, that's the goal. I want to hire people that are better at all the individual tasks than I am, because that's how I need a business to run well. So how did the landscaping business kind of get added into your portfolio? I mean, you mentioned obviously you're buying multiple businesses and doing all that. Was that just one of those other acquisitions, or where did the landscaping business come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had a relationship with a local broker, and this is a local landscaping business. And they sent it to me, and I looked at it and thought, oh man, this is, it's a pretty good opportunity. It's definitely not making as much money as it should. It's kind of set up to fail, as in the sale process. It was just set up. It was undervalued. I know that the sim wasn't put together well, but for me, there was a ton of value in that, like understanding that and looking at that and looking at the financials and thinking, man, like this business is very much undervalued. It's not being represented well. Nobody helped the person prep for a sale. Like they just put it on the market with what they had, as messy as the financials were and as messy as the operations were, and try to get it sold, right? And the brokers knew that it was kind of never going to sell. So they hit my desk. I looked at it. At the point in time, I didn't have a lot of bandwidth to take anything else on. And so I pushed it aside, and about 4 or 5 months later, they sent it to me, and I had reconnected with one of my old colleagues from the days when we were working. And I'd watched his journey a little bit. He started up a landscaping and lawn care business. And at this point in time, it's funny because of how I evolved as an investor and business owner, right? Like I knew the type of people I wanted to be or do business with and people that I didn't. Early on, I had no idea. I just did it with whomever. But I'd watched his journey long enough to know, like, man, he's very growth mindseted. He is bootstrapping it. And I know him personally, like he'll work his ass off to make it work. I thought I should, reach out to Landon and have a conversation and see if this is something that he'd be interested in. He has the operations experience and the drive to make it work. He's gone from 0 to $1 million in his current business. And this would increase the size of his business, 4 or 5-fold. And so I reached out, knowing I would have an operator, knowing I wasn't going to be the one taking it on, that he would be able to run it, just with a little advice. And so I sat down with him and we went through the financials, and he's like, dude, this place could make so much money, and these financials are so poorly represented, that we know that there's just a ton of value. And whatever we get this business for, when it's all said and done, it's probably worth 2 or 3 times that once we clean up the operation and clean up the financials. So, and then we decided to kind of push forward with that deal and dug through it and spent the next 8 months, doing due diligence and visiting the operation and coercing the owner into a sale and giving us terms that were beneficial to us. And we ended up buying it. That was a little over a year ago. And it's had its rough patches, its ups and downs, but he's been crushing it. So, I'm really excited. It's probably the best deal that I've done to date. And it's funny because it's one that I'm really not that much of a part of.
Good. I mean, that's great. I mean, it's one of those things that if you have the right operator, you don't have to be that involved with it, and you incentivize them well and do the right thing. So, I'm blanking on his name, but he's got the wealthy way and the wealthy this and the wealthy that. Ryan Pineda. So Ryan Pineda talks about he buys businesses and creates all these different ideas in businesses, and he's like the first thing I think of is if somebody brings me an idea, or if I have an idea myself, if I don't have a person who's going to run it, who I know could run that thing, I don't even touch it. And it sounds like that's already similar to exactly where your mindset is. It's like, okay, I like this business, I'm not going to touch it because I don't have the band. Oh wait, I know this guy that can run it. It can be the operator. Let me chat with him. And ever since hearing Ryan Pineda talk about that, that's exactly the way I try to think about it. So I kind of want to transition a little bit into your new kind of venture, Yscale. You obviously have a lot of experience in expanding businesses, building them out, growing them, finding the right people to put in place, and now you're kind of using those skills in Yscale. Tell me a little bit more about that and how that's been going.
Yeah, so it's slow going. Any startup is, and so that was my first venture, right? So I went from buying a franchise to buying an independent to startup, I guess, rounding out that experience. And it's been really good. The thought process and the way that the business is set up, we wanted to support small business owners. I've spent so much time in this space, and I've done so much talking and engaging with other folks, and realized, there's just such a need and such a gap, and people just don't understand. And even the most sophisticated of us, I would say, that do understand, can't get out of the weeds long enough to actually implement anything, or they lack the discipline to implement a system and to follow through with it, because they're going after the next fire all the time. And so with that in mind, we kind of just built this boutique firm that was just hyper focused on how can we go in and help operators kind of get out of the day-to-day and make their business mostly self-managing. And so with that framework in mind, we just started, okay, what are the tools that we use in order to free ourselves from our businesses? And, at the foundation of that, we run our businesses on EOS, whether we're 100%, follow EOS strictly, or we're 80% there. I guess that doesn't matter so much. The fact is that we run on a system that is repeatable, that is predictable, and that ensures that everybody's communicated to effectively. And so with EOS being the foundation, but what are the next things that we really need to do? People struggle with lead generation. And so that's like one of the other parts, like they can't grow revenue because they don't know how to actually acquire leads. And most of the time when I talk to small business owners, they just don't want to spend the money, right? Because spending the money, like everybody understands marketing and advertising for the most part, you go out and spend a couple of dollars and you get leads. The problem comes in, they start to fill up that funnel by spending the money on marketing and advertising, but they don't know what to do with it from there. Like, how do we convert them and how do we turn that into a sale? And so we're really hyper-focused on that part from a revenue growth perspective. And so EOS is meant to kind of help line out the business, give it clarity, remove the operator from being involved in every decision that needs to be made. And then it's like, how do we then help you grow revenue? And really it's how do we help you start to convert leads, and how do you capture that and follow up with that? And then we're really focused on like, how do we go in and solve operational issues, right? So as a COO, that's really where your job should be. And EOS creates alignment and clarity, but there's also, a million different rabbit holes you can go down that needs to fix operations. And so with our my lean background, my operational excellence background, working in operations, doing it in my own business, we tend to look for opportunities to pay for ourselves, right? So we go in and it's like, okay, our cost, we're not cheap people to bring into your business. And so we're looking for cost savings. How do I optimize a process that essentially pays for me? And that's pretty easy because a lot of people have very redundant or very complicated processes or no process at all, right? And it's simple. Those simple fixes in those processes can add up to a lot of money over time. So those are the ways that we try to pay for ourselves. And then we utilize things like AI and virtual assistants to a capacity that probably most small business owners don't. I would say even large businesses don't really utilize it to the effect that we do today, right? And so one of the things like we're doing in Buyers Plus business, like we are automating all of our phone systems. We are terrible about answering the phone, especially in the busy stores when customers are in there. We don't answer the phone. And so we're missing a couple hundred calls a week amongst all 12 stores. And it's like, man, if we would answer that phone, we'd capture that information and follow up with them. Even if we converted 5 or 10% of that, like that's a few $1,000s in revenue a week that we're missing. And so there's a return on investment, right? It costs a couple $100 per store to put this AI in to answer the phones and collect the data that we need collected. And then it costs a little bit of money to have a virtual assistant follow up on all of that. But what happens is we don't ever miss a lead, right? And so we have more revenue coming in because we are actually converting those leads where in the past we just ignored the phone. And every once in a while, a customer would come in and look for whatever it is that they're calling about. But how many of those customers decided that they were going to go to Walmart or Costco or to AutoZone, and we just completely missed that sale? And then not only that, how hard is it for us to get them back into our store? Because our brand isn't really well known. People come into our store because they enjoy working with us. They enjoy our team's knowledge. And so it's like, what's the opportunity cost of not doing it, right? And so that's another thing that we try to help owners think about and look at. It's like, how do we capture those leads and convert them? How do we create a process around it? And how do we do that utilizing things like AI and virtual assistants? Because I'm sure like you, like at first I didn't know what to do with a virtual assistant, but today, like I'm very clear on how to make a virtual assistant work in my business, and they have a bigger portion of the pie every year. Like we bring more and more in to do specialty roles within our business, and the return on investment is huge.
When you are on, like, if you're looking at a company or a company's looking at you guys, what kind of criteria are you looking for in that business? Like, are they at a certain revenue level, or are they at a certain size of the company? What kind of companies are you guys looking for at Y Scale to actually take on?
Yeah. So if you're looking for somebody like us, typically you're over that $1 million mark, right? You have to have some free cash flow. And at $1 million, you start to have a lot of problems, a lot of challenges that you need help fixed, right? And you have enough money coming in that you could probably afford somebody to come in and help support you. So we are like 1 million to up to 20 million. Typically at that, we'll say you're getting close to the 8-figure mark. You probably have the money to hire an operator of some sort. And so in those instances, we're much more an advisor. Like, I know for me, like if I were to move, like say a supervisor up to an operations manager, a general manager, there's a lot of skills that are missing that I'm going to have to spend a lot of time developing. And so one of the other things that we do with the larger businesses is help develop that operator, right? We help put the systems in place. We help guide and develop that person into a leader, so the operator can focus on big strategic problems. But we typically find, under that 20 million, between that 1 and 20 million is our sweet spot. And I would say the 1 to 10 million is probably even, if we had to hone it in further, that's probably even better. What areas are we focused in on today? It's more focused on the areas of business that I understand, right? Because I'm the guy, right? So if you hire us, you're getting me. That probably will hopefully not always be the case. I do love this work, but I want to keep a few key accounts and do that on the side, but also grow and lead that business. So we're looking at like franchising, right? I have a pretty good in on franchising. I understand how to work with the franchisor, how to get the most out of the franchisor and their systems, but then how to bolt on your own systems to make it work for you. So home services, right? Obviously that's a business or industry that we work in. I've worked in extensively and understand pretty well. We're doing work in healthcare, think about things like senior living and stuff like that. Manufacturing, that's my first love, right? So I love manufacturing. I love seeing things built. I love watching things be built, but I also understand how the business operates, how to get the most out of production operation, just because that's where I started, and when I was doing lean manufacturing and I was doing operational excellence, it was all in manufacturing facility. So I know how to extract value out of those types of operations. So I think we're pretty open to different industries, but those are the ones that we're hyper focused in on today.
And now I know that you are in acquiring mode. Is this something that is just you're coming in as a it's a fractional COO, so you're coming in to actually help with the operations and everything. Are folks also giving up some of their equity in the company, or is this strictly an advisor that you're kind of bolting on?
Yeah, we're not looking. We don't do the rev share, profit share, or equity share type model. We are just a flat fee based organization. And the one thing that when I think about this business and the separation between us and a lot of the other fractional COOs, like we've been doing a lot of research to see what's out there. And there's a lot of really great fractional COOs. I think that the difference comes down to a couple of things. One is they're not experienced in actually owning and operating a small business. You come out of consulting, you come out of corporate America, you jump into that role of fractional COO, and they're probably really good at setting up processes, but understanding the dynamics of the business and understanding how to work with that owner and what that owner really is looking for. That's one of those things that they lack just because they haven't sat in this seat before. So we try to add that as like one of our value propositions, right? We've been there, we've done it, we're doing it. So we're doing it alongside you. We're implementing these things in our own business as integrators in our own businesses, and we're having success with them. And now we're transferring that knowledge over to other businesses that we support.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have a wealth of experience and knowledge in the operations and the processes and building all this out, I love what you guys are doing. If folks are hearing this and they're like, dude, I totally need to reach out to Corey. I want to learn more about why scale, or I want to hear a little bit more about his story. What is the best way for folks to get a hold of you and learn more? Yeah,
the quickest way to get a hold of me is just to email me directly. So it's Corey, Corey, at wisescale.io. You can find us on, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably where I'm most active and my team is most active just because of the nature of the platform. Or you can visit our website, which is www.yscale.io.
Awesome. Well, everybody listening, obviously, you heard a bunch about Corey's experience and what he's got going on. So if there's anything he can do to serve you and your company, please reach out to him. Again, that was Corey, Corey, at yscale.io. Corey, it was awesome to have you on here. I thank you so much for jumping on and sharing a bunch of your knowledge and talking about about how you kind of have scaled these businesses and now you're helping others. I really appreciate you jumping on and chatting about it. Is there any last minute items that you wanted to hit before we wrap this up?
No, I think that we kind of covered everything. No, I really appreciate the time, Adam. And as always, it's a pleasure getting to see you and spend a little bit of time with you.
Of course. Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you. For those of you who don't know, I've got another podcast, the Biz Dad podcast. You can go check out my conversation, a longer conversation I had with Corey on the family side as well, if you can go look that up as well. But thank you, everybody, for listening. I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, comment. Let us know what your favorite part of this episode was. Tell us what you pulled from it. And we really look forward to seeing everybody on the next show. Thank you again, Corey. Thank you again, everybody listening. And we'll see everybody later.
Thanks, Adam.